A reminder, the proceedings are recorded, and we operate on an agenda basis. Any business coming before the Planning Commission would need to be submitted 1 week in advance to be added to the agenda. Little update, briefly spoke to Chairman Mark, and he's recuperating from knee replacement surgery. He's had some issues and wants us to keep him in their thoughts and prayers. So hopefully he'll have a speedy recovery. I guess everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the April 22nd meeting. Anybody have any corrections or additions to it? I didn't say anything. Anybody else?
I didn't see anything.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the minutes of the April meeting?
I'll move that.
Motion by Dave.
I'll second his motion.
By Kevin to accept the April 22nd minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay. Randolph, you have anything from the county to report on, or?
Some office business. Price Wagner has moved on. He's now with CLSI in Westminster. So he'll be around, but all the water and sewer stuff is now going to Andrew Gray.
So that is an in-house move up then from, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's handling the water and sewer now. So he'll be accepting all minutes now for 2024.
Okay. Anything else that's?
Master plan is going to start ramping up early summertime for the county. Start getting to the weeds with that, doing some initial research, and the housing study is still ongoing. They're still doing some canvassing around the county.
Okay.
Different events.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I didn't notice any booth or anything at New Windsor's Carnival. I assume, I don't know, will you get any feedback,
Yeah.
Okay, so eventually you'll get some, be anxious to hear whether they did really set up any place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and the annual report is also, I'm scheduled to present that June 5th to the County Planning Commission.
Okay.
And I sent that out for review to Gary, a draft of that annual report document. So if he had any last minute corrections for any information regarding New Windsor, he's going to send that to me. And I can squeeze that in because it has to be the MDE or MDP by July 1st. So there's still some wiggle room.
Okay. So, and you said you will send to Gary for,
Yeah,
okay.
Gary, Friday.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds like a plan. Anybody have any questions for Randolph? Okay. Dave, looks like you're next on.
All right, just a couple things to bring to your attention that we did, the town council adopted the FY25 budget at the May 1st town council meeting. This year, our total budget was a little more than $2.5 million, so that's the largest budget the town has ever had. And it's been growing over the years, but this is the largest one that we've ever had. The water line replacement project seems to be going well. They're near the intersection of Church and Main Street. You may have seen that. Church and High Street. Not Main Street, Church and High Street. We wish they were at Main Street. Yeah. They're Church and High. And, they did in front of my house, and it seemed to go pretty smooth. There wasn't an extreme amount of dirt or, there was noise, of course. They're digging up the road, but they're a well-oiled machine. They seem like they really work well together and have a good process going. So far, no unexpected issues that I've been made aware of. So far, so good. At the work session, we introduced the amendment to Chapter 215 of the Town Code to allow conditional use for micro distilleries, microbreweries, micro wineries, and coffee roasting operations. That's what we talked about, changing that, our code to a conditional use, that we could adjudicate that if something like that came up, and we were, of course, looking at the dealment in at the time. So that was introduced. So probably not at the town council meeting in June, but probably the work session, we'll have a public hearing and go forward with that. And lastly, attended so there was a second meeting on May 9th with Springdale Prep School, the county and the town. It was here at the town hall, and there was lots of people, lots of representatives from the county and Springdale Prep and the town as well. Michelle was also present. The first part of it was to talk about the site development process, so the county kind of had the lead on that part of the meeting, and they had a lot of people here that talked to Springdale Prep about the process for site development. And then the second part of the meeting was about water and sewer and the capacities that we have and that may or may not be available for Springdale Prep School and the things that they want to do in the following 10 plus years. So we had those discussions. They went sideways a little bit and they came back, and there were some follow-on meetings that happened. Wayne had to go meet with the developer up at Springdale Prep to talk about some of the ongoing things that they have, but people were talking at the end of the meeting, which was probably a good thing.
No knife fights broke out.
They weren't screaming?
There was no screaming.
That's always the test.
There was a little bit of rednecks and some flare-ups, but as expected. So that's, in the works, and that's, what I can tell you about that. I'm sure there'll be more follow-on meetings. And I guess lastly, it's on our agenda as well. Next, the town received a letter from the Hoffs about annexing in their property, or at least adding it to the growth area boundary. So, that kicked off a little bit in discussion in the town, exactly how to handle that. And, we had to look to Michelle for guidance on the proper process. And so she's going to talk to us tonight about the follow-on process to that. So I would believe that sooner than later we'll be having a meeting with the Hoffs to discuss their plans for that property.
Or not.
Or not, right,
And
or
the
not.
reason that I put it that way is the initial request that has been received is to include that property, which is, I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say 180 acres. Good sized chunk of land.
Yes.
To include it, step one is to have it included in the growth area boundary. It is not now. It is not in any way contemplated for future development within the town.
Yeah, I was looking over the zoning maps and everything.
What we've been talking about in this process, in the master plan update process. So if they are included in the growth area boundary, then they can apply for an annexation. If they are not included in the growth area boundary, well, they can apply, but it's a vain and useless thing because they have to have a certification from this body that their application is consistent with the master plan, which it will not be if they're not included. There's a lot of double negatives in all of these sentences, and I apologize, but it's kind of hard to avoid them. So process-wise, I don't think we need to even address over much the myriad regulations and steps there are for an annexation, because first thing has to happen is this master plan, which of course starts with you, but does not end with you. So if you decide to recommend a plan that includes the Hoff property, that still has to be subject to the public hearing requirements here and at the legislative body, and to have the council agree to include it. If you decide that you are not going to recommend inclusion of that farm, the mayor and council can still want to put it in. They can send it back to you for further discussion. There's a whole lot of things that can happen there. So I really think, and this is certainly not something you're going to decide tonight, certainly not because you have some players not here. But your first question is whether you want to add that property and the concomitant, I don't know, depends on how it's zoned. If that property is zoned R10 and it's 150 acres, somebody who can do math is going to have to figure that out. That's not me. A lot of houses would be going up there. There's no reason, unless Randolph has a plan or may know of one, but I don't know of any reason for that farm to be included in the growth area boundary if it is not intended to ultimately develop it at a much higher density than it could be as a farm that someone's tired of farming. So the only reason that I know of for a parcel like that to come into the town would be to develop it. I mean, we've had some around, the septic system's going bad and it's one or two properties come in, but that's not what we're talking about here. So I think the Planning Commission needs to think, discuss, maybe figure out exactly where it is on maps, etc., whether you want to recommend that be included as part of your redrafting of the next master plan. How many days to advertise annexations and agreements it's a waste of your brain space right now because you're not there yet. And I personally don't have enough brain space to waste.
So, Michelle, are you ready for questions?
Yeah, such as they are.
So if the Planning Commission would decide to include it in the growth area boundary, there is still a public hearing for the master plan prior to even the town council
Yes.
being recommended to the town. So the public's going to come in and could have discussion about it, which the town council will ultimately hear as well. All right, I have some other questions about the whole thing as well. So, and I'm strictly talking about us, the Planning Commission, adding it to the growth area boundary. So how do we look at that property, Michelle? One, for, and you already mentioned it, for density. So will the Hoffs already have a thought process that we want to make it our whatever, or does the Planning Commission look at that parcel and say, all right, it's 100 and whatever acres, it could be any of these, or it could be R10, or it could be how does that work?
Some of both. I would imagine, and I have not been privy to any other conversations on this, so I'm just imagining, that they would not have gone to the step of requesting, hiring a lawyer, going through the process, and requesting to come into the growth area if they didn't have at least a vision of what they want to do. I would imagine they have a pretty good idea of what the lot yield might be under various zoning scenarios. And again, it doesn't make any sense to put it in on an R40 kind of lot yield. They can get that in the county without having to, pay your area connection charges or whatever. So that I'm sure they have a sense of what they want to do.
So when we include it in the growth area boundary, though, are we binding that process to anything, or is it just a piece of property, 100 and whatever, 70 acres, that's just included without that?
I don't think you are binding the town to annex.
No. What I'm trying to say is if we include that parcel of property in the growth area boundary, is all the planning commission saying is this 170 acres is now in the growth area boundary? Or are we saying that 170 acres is in the growth area boundary with a R?
I was gonna say as X, as
I
X.
don't think at that point, the recommendation to put it into the boundary, I don't think establishes a future zoning. Please jump in if you think I'm wrong. Because it's been a long time since I did a big annexation, I'll be honest. But,
Yeah, that was my question as well. Would we recommend it to be a certain
legislative
type?
decision. That is not a planning commission decision.
So all we would say is yes, making that property part of the town could benefit us down the road. If we believe that, we'd want to add it.
Well, let's walk through that for one second. If it's a legislative decision, okay? So just for instance, the planning commission put it in the growth area boundary. So this 170 acres is now in the growth area boundary.
In the master plan that
In the
you are
master-
recommending.
That we are recommending, and say it gets approved. Okay, so it's now in here. All right, and somewhere down the road, the Hoffs come to the town with a proposal for that property. And they say, we're making it R10. Okay? And that's going to go to the town. Okay, the town, now who makes then, you said it's a legislative decision, so who makes that decision that R10 is okay? Is that going to go to the town?
That would probably come back to you for input, but that is ultimately a legislative decision.
So it's done by the town council.
Yes.
So it'll probably come to us at some point, and we're going to chew it over and say, no way, or yes, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to recommend to the town council that it says R10, but no, that density is way too high. We think we want to make it R20.
When you're going through that process, you've got to remember a couple of other things that are not immediately obvious, which is the priority funding area requirements. You've got language in your, or at least did have language in your extant plan about the densities that were preferable on the ring around the town, or the more urban areas, for want of a better term, but especially the priority funding stuff, because you've got to have a certain density in order to be eligible for any number of programs, financial assistance, etc. That if you were to bring in a parcel and not have it dense enough, the state may say, well, that certainly is lovely half-acre lots, but we're not going to acknowledge it. It's not going to go to. You're not going to be able to get a grant to upgrade a pump station out there, or all kinds of things like that. So it is not as simple as, well, put it in the growth area and then we'll see. Because once it's in the growth area, you do have, that implies, and once it's adopted, that is a statement by the town that you contemplate and accept development at that area at an appropriately dense density. The Department of Redundancy Department.
So, with that said, then that's a good point. If we put it in the growth area boundary, we are making a statement that someday, we would expect that property to be developed. Okay, so how do we make the decision to put it in the growth area boundary when we know things like our current water capacities and sewage capacities, and we know things like updating our wastewater plant to ENR, if we would add future densities, that it's going to kick us out of our ability to get state grants for it, and the town would have to shoulder all the millions of dollars for that. How do we use that information and then also use that information so that we don't stymie development in the town? So how do and maybe guys, because maybe I have just guilty knowledge of too much stuff, but I try to fill you in on it. I try to fill you in on those kind of things, but.
Pardon me, no knowledge of anyone on this commission is guilty knowledge. You have some not yet public knowledge, perhaps, but it's not guilty.
Well, and I wouldn't even say it's not total, not public. It's just, it's just knowledge that's been bubbling around. But I know this thing, so as I'm trying to make decisions, I have a lot more information going through my head, thinking, what do we do in this situation? What's the impact to the town today by saying the future could be there, right?
Yes, and the answer to that is the same way you do everything, by getting as much information as you can. And you and the legislative body, the council, with input almost certainly from the citizenry, make what you believe is the best decision both for now and for the future, and decisions that are economically and socially and environmentally and all those lees feasible. And I know that's not a good answer, but that's the answer. It's not. You have to decide. You have to do what you believe is best. Talk it out, think it through. Maybe get more info. If you want to meet with them, get more information, get maps, figure out, see what. Maybe figure out what you've got. Several categories of density, and now you've got the 10, but you've got one that's really high. Maybe it's the 10 that puts 10 houses yield on pretty much on every acre. So that could be a lot, because of course your lot yield is determined by your gross area, not just your buildable area. So even if they have areas that they can't build on because they're slopey or wet, those lots, theoretically at least, can go somewhere else. And you just get as much information as you can and make the decision that you believe is best, recommend it, pass that buck. But you pass it from one hand to the other, so that's tougher. I'm saying there isn't a formula, unfortunately, that you could say, well, we're going to check off these boxes and these boxes, and we got 7 boxes, and we need 7 boxes, so we're good.
I'm looking at things like the location of that. So I think we've talked about it enough that we understand where the location is. It's at the top of the hill, the farm just off of Hawks Hill.
Yeah.
Past Hollowell?
It would be adjacent to, yes.
What I thought, you get down to the turnaround, the get in.
Yes, and that's where it touches.
And that's where it touches, right?
Yes. So it goes back there.
I didn't know it was 180 acres though.
Yeah, it's a good size. So you look at things like supplying water and sewer to that area, right? Well, I'm looking at our water tower is up here.
Yeah.
At probably a lower than that is. So now you got to start thinking about a new water.
Second water tower for that development alone.
So there's some positives there, right? Because maybe there's some wells out there that the town can tap into, some new water sources, right? Okay, so you have a new water tower and maybe some more redundant water sources for the entire town, if you get that all plumbed right and tied together. Then you also have to look at the getting rid of the water, right? So the waste, that our sewage system, are we looking at, well, that's flowing downhill, but I don't think there's, just Dave's opinion, not enough capacity there to flow that in. Probably not the space we want to use to build another one there. So are you talking about another wastewater treatment plant? And with wastewater treatment plants, right, then you're talking about MDE managing that, right? We look at the money that we spend for MDE to manage ours. If you throw a second one on there.
MES.
MES, I'm
Just
sorry,
in case anybody's-
yes, MES. So, we pay them to manage because they're the people with the credentials, and the town doesn't have that, and it wouldn't be feasible for us to hire 24/7 to do that, right? So you're talking about a whole nother crew. And then you have to start looking at things. I've been thinking about this, guys. You look at things like our town staff, right? We would not have enough public works workers to handle another development that size. Our town staff in the office here would probably need to grow. We would need to get probably more vehicles, right? Things like snow removal and all that. So now we're talking trucks and,
Right.
And so you're looking at all that, and I'm looking at who's gonna pay for all that, right? And so sometimes you can point the finger at the developer. Is a developer gonna pay for a water tower and a wastewater system? And I'm looking at millions. I'm thinking millions to do that.
Easily.
Right? And so, no, I'm not saying a developer wouldn't do that, but I'm not sure a developer would or wouldn't, right? I'm just throwing these things out. And then, so the water and sewage typically have to be self-sustaining, right? That's how we're set up. So even if that development was self-sustaining and paid for water and sewage, all those other things that tax dollars paid for, the town staff, the public works, the trucks, the snow removal, on and on and on and on and on, is that going to be beneficial to the town? We kind of thought when the new development here went in that the town was going to, well, I'm not 100% sure. We're doing okay, but it's not like we're like overflowing with funds because we had 128 additional units come into the town.
We do have our biggest budget.
We do have our biggest budget because we're spending a lot of money.
Yes, we are.
And we still have a lot of roads to fix, and and we have taken over more roads and all those kind of things. So I've had a week and a half or maybe 2 weeks and I've been doing a lot of thinking about this because it was weighing heavy on me, this decision. And so I've been like running these kind of things through my head and want to share that with all you guys so that we can make a good decision. And I'm not poo-pooing development. Development could be good for the town. I don't know. So I'm not like saying, oh, this sounds all terrible. There could be some benefits for the town. It could be, a huge tax increase or something that could be beneficial to the town. But we got a lot of decisions to make.
So when I first heard it, I hear a lot of things that you said that aren't the thoughts that pop into my head. What pops into my head is, oh wow, 150, 170 acres could. And you brought up the fact is we just added to the growth area. We're not telling them what it could be just by doing that. But in my opinion, you have the ability, maybe you could make a second little business district inside that property, make that part of the requirement where you generate some revenue for the town by having a business district inside that 180 acres to also augment. And I mean, I don't know whether we as a planning commission, can we do things like that?
I will preface this by saying some of this is my opinion and some of this is history.
Okay.
You have trouble enough maintaining a 2-block business district. So I'm not, this is my opinion part. I'm not really convinced that a small, localized business area is feasible. And when we were doing Snyder Summit the first 5 or 6 times, you go back that far, that was part of the commission wanted some ability to have little mom and pop stores and All of those things that sound really good and, with respect, Randolph, are very popular with planners. Unfortunately, they are not popular with the people who have to actually utilize them. And if they were, Uncle Mattie's would still be Rupp's Groceries. The problem with those things is the demographics just don't support them. So what happened with Snyder Summit is they were like, yeah, fine, we like that idea. Until we tried to actually work it out. Well, how much? How many? And then their market research people came in and said, look, they don't work. They don't work. The county tried to do that down in South Carroll 30 years ago when I was working over there. They were going to have a whole, like a sort of a sub-town. I can't think, there was a phrase for it. I can't think of what it was, probably before you were born. And the developers and the farmers and everybody else came in and said, it sounds pretty, but it no longer works because the way we live now doesn't support it. And that was before 50-60% of people's shopping is done here and delivered to their house, sometimes in 2 hours. So I think it's a nice idea, but I just have real serious questions as to whether it would work. Now, that having been said, if the council wants to try and do that, and the property owner still wants to annex in under those circumstances, have at it. But I imagine you'd be looking at a rezoning request within 5 years. That's just my opinion.
And that's why I asked the question, because I understand. In Montgomery County, the Kentlands, it works, but it's Montgomery County.
There's a zillion and a half people.
It's not Carroll County. That's why I asked that question. We don't necessarily have a demographic that, and because we have so much land, it doesn't fit. I understand that. That's why, but I was wondering.
I always thought the growth area boundary was something the county created, but it's evidently not.
That's what I was gonna ask you, Michelle. Since they're not already in the growth area boundary, would they have to first go to the county?
Well, they have to first go to the county. I don't know. I know that the county has to review any of those changes to the growth area boundary. But I don't know, I honestly just don't know what order that would happen in.
Because currently, that parcel,
But I
what the county is zoned agricultural, so you would need.
They'd need waivers, they'd need all kinds of stuff. But I don't think that, just trying to think it through in my head, if they were to go to the county first, and the county was able to say, we are changing the town's growth area boundary, and the town said, oh, no,
Yeah.
See, I think they kind of have to work.
I think we have to agree, and then they would say, okay, since you want it, we'll let you do it. Yeah.
The county reviews whatever our master plan recommendation ultimately is. It also goes to the state, and it goes to a couple of other entities. I don't remember who they are. You know, these mega bureaucratic places. So it would have to be done with the county. I don't know if the county could. I don't know. This is an interesting question. If we wanted to include it, could the county say no? I don't know the answer to that.
It's along the master. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's part of the master plan.
I mean, could they say, no, we want to keep the agriculture? I would think the county could say that.
I don't know that the county could say that unless the county was prepared to buy an easement on that property. And there's no easement on it now, I know that much.
That's why I don't think they would if we wanted them to, only because of the problems it could create.
Yeah.
But I would think that they could, that they would be allowed to make their decision, but I would think it always would be follow what the towner was recommending.
I think the town has got to be at least a primary decider, even if they both have to, they both would have to work together, because if it's ag now and we wanted to bring it in and plant 400 houses on it, they need to get a variety of steps under the statute. They need to get waivers of the zoning delay requirements and all kinds of other stuff. That again, this is why I said you start getting into that morass. It gets to be really confusing. And frankly, I would need to have my book with me even to talk about the specifics of how the annexation would work. But you're not there yet, because you have to look at and make those decisions. What I don't think you want to think about doing is putting it in the growth area boundary without a lot of discussion and a recognition that the only way it makes sense is to have it as a high-density area. And that's both from the town's perspective and the developer's perspective. This is what the county's going through down in Eldersburg. And you knew what I was thinking, didn't you? All those Eldersburgers bought their acre lot, and they're on water and sewer, and they're happy. And then suddenly the county said, well, wait a minute, we're putting out an awful lot of money for water and sewer. Let's make these lots smaller so we can put more folks on them. More payers, more, rate payers, and it doesn't make sense to build $1 zillion facility for 100 houses. It might make sense to spend that $1 zillion for 1,000 houses. And the people on their acre lots are squawking because they wanted everything in Eldersburg to be acre lots. And the county is saying, no, we got to have more dense in order to justify the expense of the public infrastructure. And you'd be looking at the same thing if you're talking about anything other than lots of small.
Yeah, I can see that.
See what I'm saying?
I can see, yeah.
So obviously,
It's complex.
I mean, it's obvious to me that we certainly need to have a meeting with the Hoffs to hear, what their thoughts are, what their plans would be, to see where they are, not just to listen, right?
All we have right now is a request from council to put that property with all the meets and bounds, and they've got the deed descriptions and everything else in it, into the growth area boundary, which is why it was addressed not just to Gary, but to Mark. That's always the first step. Now, the county does that on a routine basis every few years. I'm not exactly how often they do it or how, but they don't send out letters, but they somehow make it known that they're entertaining, they're in the process, and if you want us to entertain changing your zoning or whatever, let us know, and then the commission sits for weeks and goes over them all, and do we want to keep this in, do we want to put this out, do we want to change? But we don't have anywhere near that kind of, obviously, because I'm trying to think, it's possible that the reserve was the most recent annexation. The Snyder Summit was in. And the reserves were annexed before I started here. And that's, what did I figure, something like 26 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can remember because it went bankrupt, it went shut down.
Yeah. They were an interesting bunch of people. So we haven't done one in a long time, is my point. So,
Do you recall, was the growth area boundary changed when we annexed that in? Or was the growth area boundary, did it already include that parcel of
I have
land?
no idea.
Because we have growth area boundary out 31 that's not in the town, right?
Yeah,
We still
yeah.
have, so I mean, that's been
more than the
on
town,
there
it'd be the
for,
town boundary.
right, that's been out there for a long time, and we never pulled in, there's 7 houses or something out there that.
Changed the growth area boundary, maybe 2010, I think it was in there, because part of the lease farm wanted to come out of the growth area because it wanted to sell an easement, an ag preservation easement on part of its property. And it couldn't get the easement deal if it was in the growth area.
Right.
So that's the only change with which I am familiar to that boundary.
Okay.
Does the Hoff, again, I know the Hoff farm. I'm not sure, does the property touch any part of the town at all?
Yeah.
It does, and it's a small,
I was gonna say, where does
It
it,
does have to touch.
There where Joe Apter
yeah, it's just,
intersects with Hawks Hill Road.
Hawks Hill?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. It's at the bottom. If you're familiar with Hawks Hill Road, if you go out, well, if you know where Joe Apter and Hawks Hill intersect, it's that parcel straight up. It's currently farmland straight across from it.
Okay.
So.
You know, another thing, when you're looking at bringing property in, the whole issue of access, roadway systems, what's here, what's not, what's feasible, what's not, is also something that you will be looking for as part of your decision. Another thing that we will need to look at, and this is to some extent a commission issue, but more a council issue, is a serious review of your code requirements for provision of water, finding new water, paying for new service, paying for upgraded sewers, those kinds of things, which we really don't have a lot of because we haven't had a lot of new development that we couldn't serve if they paid the area connection charges, which they did and we do. But if you're talking, you know, potentially adding half again as much use, we need to look at that. I'm just sitting here thinking,
Would need to negotiate for them to have the privilege of public utilities, water and sewer. You would have to negotiate, you know.
well, that's part of your annexation agreement, assuming that they become part of the growth area.
Yes.
So everything comes back.
Right, to that,
All roads lead to the GAB.
right.
So you would need quite a bit of information before you could get to that point.
Yep.
From, you know, as far as housing density and that.
Well, yeah, housing density, I think the simplest way to figure that out would be to see exactly how many acres there is, and then say at R10, let's just pull R10, this is how many houses could go out there, and consider that that's the max. Now, you almost never get the max on a property because sometimes they just physically don't fit.
Yeah.
But and this is a personality problem I have, I would always rather plan for the worst and have it not happen. I don't know. But if somebody has the legal right to pick a number, 400 houses, and they got an engineer who can figure out how to get 400 houses on their buildable area with all the other requirements that they'll have to do, that's what they're going to bring in. So you need to think about all those things. And that's why you guys make the big bucks.
And we can't consider any of that until we get the information. So.
Exactly.
Well, have a meeting with them set up. I don't remember for some reason it wouldn't print. That's right. The letter she sent would not print on my machine. I only got half of it for some reason. I need to get Gary to make me a copy next time I'm coming out, which will be Thursday. But we could, you could set up a meeting with them and see what they have to say, what their plans are. And
Could we have a written proposal from them?
only
Take that proposal and then apply it against the information that we
the
find.
proposal is purely, this is the lot, this is the acreage, please include us in the GAB. As you're doing, it's our understanding you are in the process of doing your new master plan, please include us in the GAB. It's about all it says, it's a page.
That'd be it.
for some reason, I'm trying to bring it up, but
It really doesn't say a whole lot.
I could do like a map of that property in the different residential zones. zones and then calculate the densities for each one.
That'd be great.
Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that would be me.
So it says that the title of this thing, it says there's kind of 3 tax accounts that go along with it. One's 158 acres, one's 6 acres, and the third one is 6 acres. So 158 and 12, 168, 170 acres.
3 parcels, is that what you're?
3, yeah, it's broken into 3 tax account numbers, so I guess it's 3 individual parcels.
They are.
Yeah, that is 100, total is 170 acres. And it will not, because there was a map.
Yeah.
And I, for some reason, it is not.
Yeah, I don't know if I could or could not have printed the map, but I didn't.
Michelle, do you mind emailing that to me so I can see
The letter?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Because the county has online an interactive map that you can put in information and it brings up that parcel.
Yeah.
That parcel, yeah.
Why? So I got the letter.
It's gonna be interesting.
Being an ag district, which it is, correct? I just have in the back of my mind that the state, the county, somebody is going to take a real hard look at developing that. I mean, I don't know, I don't have anything to go by other than,
They may very well. Of course, the flip side of that, if I'm the property owner, I'm like, well, you look hard. Buy it. If you want it that bad and you want it to stay in farming, buy it. I have no idea if they've ever talked to anybody in the ag pres world or not. Purchase the development rights.
Right.
But I don't know.
Because the county is doing lots of that ag purchase.
But they may not want that. People get tired.
Uh,
They may not want to farm anymore. I don't know if there's a next generation coming up who's interested in farming, or the next generation coming up says, if I never see another cow, it'll be too soon.
And that could be what's motivating them to want to get the property sold.
I mean, how many times do you see, I can't believe that restaurant is closing. They were so successful. Yeah, well, all their kids live in Montana and nobody's there to run the restaurant. So that, I don't know. I don't think that letter gives us any indication other than please put us in the growth area boundary.
And I can't pull up the map here.
The first step would be try to set up a meeting and get more information.
With the commission.
Commission with,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I would like the planning commission members
Yeah,
that.
you want everybody here if you
Aren't
possibly
here,
can.
though, to at least be privy to the information that we know and how to act it, but how to take the meeting, right? So it should be an information meeting for the planning commission, but since none of us have gone through it, we want to make sure that they understand.
You need to have everybody here if humanly possible.
Yes, what we're trying to understand.
It's a slow process, so, it takes as long as it takes. I mean, it's not like we're ready to put the final binding on that master plan.
No. And there needs to be, like, I know Gary and Wayne are currently working on capacities. So Randolph provided us with maps for all our zoning within the growth area boundary. And so Gary and Wayne are looking at that and trying to figure out the capacities for all that. And that goes for our sewage capacities, right? So we have to have an idea, because we're converting to that ENR, upgrading our facility. We're working with the state on a grants program, and the state is trying to buy your excess capacity. So if the town just say had let's just throw a number of 250,000 gallons on it, and say we only say we need 175,000. I'm just making stuff up. We could then look at this table, and for 175,000, the state will give us so much grant money. If we were at 150, they would give us more grant money. If we were at 115, they'd give us more grant money. If we were at 250, they'd give us zero, say. Okay, so if we said 175 is the magic number, and the state would give us this kind of grant money. Well, they give you that kind of grant money because now they have 75,000 gallons worth of capacity that they just bought from New Windsor, and it's gone. So if we were to say, hey, we want to take in the property up here and we need, we don't have any capacity any longer.
We will lose that.
We'll lose that capacity. And then we would have to go back to the state, and the state will say, well, gee, over here in Kent Island, we still got some capacity. We'll sell it to you, New Windsor, for cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And so now we're in this screwed zone, right? So that's why we have to really make a smart decision about future growth, because we don't want to handicap ourselves right now by saying we don't need that capacity, because maybe someday we want it. But we also have to realize that if we don't give any capacities up, our ability to get grant funding could be nil, and then the upgrading the system then could be on the taxpayers totally. All right, so that's what we have
So
to.
that grant money would apply to any upgrades we would do to.
That's what, yeah. So they're giving grants for ENR upgrades, right? But it's all depending on capacities, and so so that's why Gary and Wayne are working on that right now. But they're not considering that parcel of land because currently it's not in our GAB, right?
Consider.
So it's another thing that will have to be considered before we even turn this puppy loose. Our master plan.
The plans that the Springdale Prep had, I'm sure it's a different formula for dormitories as far as.
There's,
How
yes,
close is that?
that's not,
I
that's
know
not,
it's all-
yes, that's not factored in as well. And, we have some preliminary numbers from them that changes that capacity. And so there's a lot of decisions that have to be made for the
A
town.
lot of balls in the air.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, no one really wants to pay for them if they fall down.
Yes.
So, put your thinking caps on, give it some thought. The next meeting is, I won't be here for the June meeting because I'll be in Ocean City. That's the MML week.
Okay.
And I don't know how Mark is going to be. I don't know if other folks are ill or working or standing on their heads. So you do want to try and set up something so that everybody can be here. And, you may want to wait a little while. They've been responded to. Thank you. We've passed your information along and we'll get back to you, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, we need to have our ducks in a line or in the row, and then get them in here. But you're right, we need all these players in the room.
and probably also to get a whole bunch of information from Wayne and Gary about where we are.
Okay, that's a lot to digest there. I guess we really can't, the next item, comprehensive plan review, I
So
guess
I
we.
pulled up the comprehensive plan that I had from Emily, and it's dated December 2nd.
Oh,
That was
okay.
that was the last one that she
shared.
sent out to us. Remember that we were supposed to review for the January meeting, and then she's been taking all the notes, and I don't have.
Even you don't even know where we are, to be honest with you. I've been making.
Page 47, one there that I have is where we.
Yeah, but we
left off.
can't make corrections. So
So I don't. Unfortunately, I would like for us to do something, but I don't know what we can do at this point.
I don't know shorthand. Or, yeah.
And then I think, Mark had on our agenda that we discuss life after Emily because Emily's house is on the market. And I think she's planning on, I thought maybe she was planning on moving in June.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's moving to Montana. I think she's moving to Frederick.
And so I don't know.
She would be available for a little while.
Yeah, Mark said that several meetings she probably would be able to
Okay.
still attend.
But yeah, if she's got the keys to the castle, we need to make sure that we have the
Get them
keys.
from her before she.
Castle, yeah. Have fun storming the castle.
Well, we're pretty close to having the final document, that, we could, once we get there, then we could have that, and then it should be, I think, minor changes after that, as we review it, probably individually, that we find some minor stuff, but.
And then the whole process of it's being reviewed, and I can tell you Hampstead's review came back with 12.5 things they wanted changed at the state level. So,
From the state.
yeah. Well, I mean, some of them are what I would consider substantive. More of them are what I would consider bureaucratic, but that's because I'm snotty.
And as far as her services, according to this, it's budgeted through this current fiscal year.
Fiscal year, yeah, so I don't know.
Well, I believe we put in, we still put in limited funds in FY '25 budget for her. Wasn't as,
Stop.
to finish it up. So I think that we still have, money available that we'll be able to pay Emily to get us through the finish line with this.
Get with her and see her availability. I know moving is not, everything's up in the air.
But it is difficult to do any of those things without her.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, anything else as far as related to the comprehensive plan? Dave?
No, so you had that we left off, just so we're all.
I had marked page 47,
47?
but that was her page 47. Well, that's,
Stop at 72.
I thought you were way beyond 47.
Yeah.
72 as well, chapter
Chapter 6.
we finished chapter 6, I think we're at chapter 7.
That's what I wrote
yeah, I
down.
can say, yeah, we're that much.
I think 72. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, because we were talking about what the recreational, is that where we past that?
Transportation.
Yeah.
And a lot of it we were getting rid of, I think.
Right.
I've seen a lot of X's.
Yeah. So that's where it's helpful to see what she has left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I see it starting up at 79 after I have it all X'd up to that.
Yeah, I don't know why I wrote it backwards.
So,
I don't know what she had, her verbiage and.
Right.
So really, it's kind of
We're dead in the water with that.
spinning our wheels on this. So, guess the next thing, the next meetings, the June and July meetings.
I'll be good for July, but I'm not coming in June.
June, okay.
Michelle's at MML. Okay.
Whether Mark would be up to whether they're attending or who all
Yeah, we'll have to.
towns attending that.
I don't know if they're going or not.
I don't believe they are. You mean to Ocean City?
Yeah.
No, I think the only ones going are Neil and Sina and Kevin and I believe his wife and me and Steve. But the MML now has Steve as apparently like the guy. Because we're getting correspondence to Steve Ostrander, which is really pretty comical. I don't think you were there last year. Yeah, I don't know how it happened last year. His little dog tag thing said that he was a council member. So he was quite pleased and wanted to know when he would be paid.
As soon as he starts making these very hard decisions.
That's what I said.
You're here, aren't you? There you go. It's taxable. You need to cover the tax on this gift.
Okay, so it looks like the 24th of June will be the next meeting. We feel we need to have council. Yeah.
Frankly, if you're basically going through, I would change this sentence to that sentence.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry. I don't want anybody to get in the habit of not needing a lawyer, but I don't think you need me for that.
Okay.
Don't have a meeting with the Hoffs while I'm not here.
Yeah, oh, no. And then July the 22nd, looks like,
Silence all your
So-
devices.
kind of keep those dates in mind when you,
I'm among those individuals. So I'm doing that now.
upcoming events. I see, the National Night Out will be the first Tuesday
call
in
meeting to
August,
order.
down in Carroll Grounds.
7:01
It's usually a pretty nice,
p.m. Good evening and welcome to the Town of Sykesville
deputy
Mayor and
usually
Town
has
Council meeting. Today is
quite a
Monday,
few
May
vendors and
28th,
displays
2024.
and works pretty
We'll
good
call the
on
meeting to
getting
order at 7:01. We'll begin our meeting
nice,
as we begin all meetings here in the
presentation
council
in the
chambers
evening
with
for-
the pledge of allegiance. And we'll
So Randolph,
follow
if
that
you don't have anything to,
I pledge allegiance
Mark it on your calendar, Randolph. It's hopping. It's hopping.
get a free hot
Get a
dog.
seatbelt cart.
Come up and get a free hot dog and soda.
under God, indivisible.
Then we have the fire company, we have our crab feed on September the 14th. That's from 5 to 8. So anybody interested in some crabs? Maybe on the 14th. Anybody else have anything to bring up that's
All right. It is
exciting,
should be
upcoming?
completely obvious, but just for the record, is there anyone? No, you can't see. We need to get blinds up there.
Are there any other business? Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Motion by Kevin. Do I hear a second? I'll second. I guess I can second it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you all for coming in discussion. I appreciate it.